Okay, I think we're good. All right, so Dead Cells tier list, episode 232. I am Veedotme. We've got skills on the list today. So skills basically encompass everything that's on the L2 and the R2 slot. So that means we're talking grenades, turrets, and what they call powers. Powers are like Wings of the Crow, or can you see my mouse? Yeah, you can. Wings of the Crow, Death Orb, Corrupted Power, all of that stuff, those are skills. I mean, those are powers. First thing on the list. Boom. Out of here. Saving space. You're gone. Wait, it stopped. Okay, there we go. All right. Sinew Slicer. Now, Sinew Slicer is like one of the very first things. Oh, I lost S rank again. Sinew Slicer is like one of the very first items you get in the game. Yeah, 1.4 just released today. So this is like, I really have to do this week. And skills honestly takes the longest to do. So that's why like it's super important that we actually get this done. Earliest item in the game. It applies bleed and 4BC plus. Remember, this is a 4BC plus tier list. You can get sometimes bonus poison around the target. I don't know if you can get the self synergy with the bleed. I don't know if you can get bleeding causes poisoning. The problems with this, it basically only fires horizontal. It doesn't breach super well. Breach means that it like stuns the target after it does a certain amount of damage. Does not actually have breach like up here at all. Probably no one decided to do any measurement on that. So obviously not an S, obviously not an A, probably not a B. Situational, that means that there's a build out there where, you know what, you draw this in your hand, you got Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, this thing in the deck, and you pull it, you win. I don't think that's the case with Sinew Slicer. And back in the day, we had this thing as an insta-sell. I don't know if it's still instant sell because blood is kind of important in order to deal max damage. So for example, you're running the owl. The owl, you want some kind of like bleeding somewhere so you can get that 60% bonus damage. But then again, you could just use 2 owls. So it's like, do I really want to have this thing anywhere? Hey, Ash. Where else do you want bleed? Maybe if you're using Electro Whip. Again, you're trying to win the game off deep draw out of the deck of items here. Maybe you want bleed for the quick bow? I don't think so. I don't think quick bow does anything with bleed. Boomerangs, boy axe. So in that instance, it's just a turret, and it's like, would you take that turret over double crossbow? I don't think so. Over heavy? I don't think so. Flame? Definitely not. Cleaver? That's bleed and poison half the time. So is Sinew Slicer better than Cleaver? I don't know. Same cooldown. Also red. Cleaver does more damage. Why does the bleed last like longer? I mean, it's a level 1 weapon. You're playing on 4+. You can't. You just take anything else. Like, it's okay, especially if you get a legendary version. The legendary version, it's just stats. There's really nothing wrong with it. But there's so many other turrets that do more than what a Sinew Slicer does, and it hits up. Heavy turret, I'm sorry. Heavy turret, Barnacle, double crossbow, even Flamethrower hits not vertically, but you can definitely get the fists from the giant. Double Electro and double Sinew Slicer. I'm telling you, if you have upstart goblins and you're trying to draw out your entire deck to get Exodia, that might be it. Double Electro and the Sinew Slicer, what do I know? I've definitely never done that. Might be some secret technology. Alright, Infantry Grenade. Infantry, I previously had as an A. I actually still really like it. I don't think it's an S tier, only because there's other stuff that I've been kind of taking over it. One nice thing that you can get on the infantry is poison. If you imagine you're just throwing the grenade, and oil, I think you can get oil on this grenade. And when you're playing brutality, there's not a lot of really fun poison choices unless you get like a cursed item. So if you get like phaser with poison, bleeding causes poisoning on knife dance. It's actually not a lot of options. Cannot get poison on Lacerating Aura. You can get Corrosive Cloud, but that's a 20-second cooldown compared to 4 seconds of applying poison. And the poison is gonna last for what, maybe 2 seconds? So there's every 2 seconds it has poison on and off. So it's like, if you draw this with poison, I think you gotta take it. Just throwing this out there, if Phaser doesn't get at least an A tier, we're gonna fight. Hey, no spoilers. It's halfway through. We'll probably get to this by like Sunday. That's how far that thing is. So I actually still like it as an A. Now, it's not strong enough to kill a Lacerator or a Slasher. Sometimes you can get it to interrupt their attack, so a lot of monsters, like, you'll throw something at it and it'll bounce because the shockwave. If you can get the shockwave on the infantry, it's actually pretty good. It's also a super short cooldown, so if you're running the Hunter's Instinct, then you can actually get like really fast cooldown reduction on this. Or you can do like some other people and run Hunter's Instinct. I think I said Killer Instinct first. It's Killer Instinct for the melee, Hunter's Instinct for the ranged, and then Instincto, which is Instinct of the Master at Arms or something. Super long name. This thing, that's the crit one. This thing actually will get its cooldown refreshed, not fully, like a good 1 second off if you're running Hunter's Instinct. That doesn't need any purple, to be honest. You can get that thing at level 1, your first mutation, and Hunter's Instinct will shave off a good like half a second, 0.6. You throw a grenade at 2 bats, that's already like a full 1.5 seconds off. This thing's on a 4-second cooldown. So it's just like, yeah, it can't clear a whole room like Powerful Grenade, but if you can kill one thing, then you're probably good. Like the Night Slashers or the Night Stalker, I think is the name, or a Knife Thrower. If you can kill one of those with just infantry, take the Lacerator down by half, that's half the enemies gone. And it just thins the crowd. It's really useful. Death Orb, though. Death Orb got changed. So this is the first item of version 1.4 that we're going to talk about that actually had a change. Death Orb used to be Reddit's favorite item way back in the day. Used to take 80% cooldown reduction. You take 2 Death Orbs, and then you just spam them on bosses. And really, the Death Orb by themselves would kill the boss. You don't have to do anything. And then Death Orb got nerfed. so that it fizzles out once it does an X amount of damage. Like over nerfed. Cooldown went up to 20 seconds. We lost cooldown reduction in the kit. So now it has to kill something for you to get cooldown reduction. Or you run Instincto, I guess. They buffed it a little bit to give that damage back. And then they made it green. They're like, okay, no one wants to use this thing while it's purple. We're just gonna make this thing green. Green is severely lacking in just raw boss fighting damage. There's a lot of stuff that's single hit, whereas a lot of these bosses you need like ambient damage while you're dodging to do your one broadsword swing. So a lot of speedrunners who are playing the GK, the giant killer, are actually using double death orbs. And that's basically, you can use death orbs on the monsters in the biomes in order to get the speed bonus. Death orbs will kill elites. If it doesn't, then the giant killer will kill them. And then the death orbs are good on the bosses. Now the only problem with that, and we've tried this, like we actually tried this, death orb in 5 BC against even like concierge, it's borderline okay. Like any cursed item I feel could have been better. I feel like Crusher technically would be better. I mean, it kind of depends on if you get cooldown reduction, like parry cooldown reduction, crit cooldown reduction. Crusher, 14 seconds. I guess that's not like that much better. Some people have been using stuff like Root Grenade, which is also green now, does some damage, still 16 seconds. All this stuff is like super slow. I really feel like you're better off just finding a cursed green item. Well, not cursed green, a cursed anything but green over Death Orb, and that's specifically for bosses. It still fizzles out, that's the problem. It still fizzles out. So I don't think it's an insta-pick, even when you're playing green. If you're playing purple, and you take a Death Orb and you have that cooldown reduction, I still don't think it's the right choice. So even the cursed version isn't all that great. You can get Death Orbs that apply poison. So when you're playing survival, that's actually useful, except you can get Wolf Trap that has poison. Except you can get Crusher that has poison. And then Giant Killer will probably deal more damage than this thing. Not Giant Killer, Giant Whistle. Giant Whistle got buffed, so we'll talk about that later. But Whistle probably does more in the fight than this thing does, considering you can like lose positioning on a Death Orb. We did have one fun game that was basically you're using Seismic Strike that snares the target, or Wolf Traps, I guess. You toss a Death Orb and then you just leave them there. Death Orb still, I feel like, doesn't do that much damage on bosses, but it was fun. Just to say that. Previously, this thing was a B. I don't think it's a B anymore. Unless you're playing 0 BC speedruns, I just do not see the value in this. It might be a gameplay preference, because the player runs faster than the Death Orb. So if you throw the Death Orb and you feel confident you can actually melee down all the monsters, you can just run past it and kill everything. I guess like how you're supposed to use it is, let's say you're in Toxic Sewers. Toxic Sewers, you have a hallway and then a hallway above it. So 2 floors, monsters on both floors. You throw the Death Orb down one hallway, you jump up, and then you go fight in the other hallway. And that sounds okay, except it's 4 BC and stuff will teleport if it doesn't stun. And this, it does stun pretty well. So in that case, I think that works. It's just a matter of like, is that really valuable or not? I can't really tell. I don't do it that much. And then powerful grenade exists. So who's to say I don't just like mob the whole first floor, use a powerful grenade on it, and then go to the next floor and then like melee that stuff down. And then third floor powerful grenades back up. I don't know. I guess mobbing is a lot more dangerous than like risking this aggroing an elite at the end of the hallway. All right, back up to the top. Wolf Trap. So Wolf Trap we previously had as an A tier. I have used a lot of Wolf Trap, both green and purple. You can get in 4BC plus Wolf Traps that exude poison, toxic cloud around the Wolf Trap. The Wolf Trap does bonus damage to poison targets, and you can get increased damage while the monster's trapped. That's 3 things, 3 amazing things, and it works twice. You have 2 traps, not just 1. This thing single-handedly can, it won't outright kill an elite, but most elites won't do anything if you're behind it, like out of sight. If you get it trapped and it can't turn, it won't activate its skills unless it's using like a turret, the magic missile essentially. They won't activate their auras, they won't activate horizontal laser, they won't activate spinning laser. They'll just stand there trapped. And all you have to do is kill it. And if you can't kill it by it yourself, the Wolf Trap does bonus damage. It increases your damage. And you're playing survival, so you're probably using like something like the AK, the Nutcracker. If you're playing tactics, you can use honestly anything. You can go melee tactics. You can backstab. You can use frantic. You can just poison it. I think the Wolf Trap can get bonus damage to poison target, so you can just toss the caltrops. Toss the caltrops on the ground, have it snared, and then you just throw the shuriken at it. I kind of think it's an S, only because it's so versatile and it can kill stuff on its own. Now, if you think about other turrets, so say you're going tactics. Tactics, you have available to you the Hunter's heavy turret, double crossbow, Barnacle. So you have a lot of DPS options. Let's say you're running just a classic build of like double owl and magic missile. You can drop one of the owls and take any turret, or I guess maybe you never found the owl. Let's say you just got massively unlucky. You never found the owl, you've been sitting on one owl forever, and then all of a sudden, you have your choice at any turret. I think they're all equally good, kind of depends on what your owl does. But I think, depending on where you're going, because if it's giant, then it's a different story. I think you take Wolf Trap even if you're using an owl. Only because the Wolf Trap can have the oil and it can have the poison. Owls can spread oil too, so like if you get a double crossbow or Barnacle that fires fiery shots, then that's cool and all. This thing can give oil, so you can have like burning oil targets. In that case, doesn't really matter if the owl has oil or not. But I think Wolf Trap, the fact that it keeps the monster at bay, so that means that you don't have to worry about your owl fizzling out, and you're using magic missiles, so you get to like just keep them there, Gallic gun them from the back, and then you don't really have to worry about anything. The cooldown's 14 seconds. I know that sounds like a lot, but when you're talking about 2 seconds over heavy, 4 seconds over double crossbow, I honestly think it's not that bad. Will I take Wolf Trap over every single other turret? The only one I would remotely think about is maybe the Flamethrower, and only because of like where I'm at. So if I'm in caverns heading the giant, maybe I take the Flamethrower over the Wolf Trap. Any other fight, be it Concierge, even Conjunctivious, I will use Wolf Traps against Conjunct. There's actually a post on Reddit today about snaring Conjunct and then just going town with the AK. And you skip every phase, it just dies. And that's because of Wolf Trap. Like, Wolf Trap made that happen. Heavy Turret's not gonna do that. Flamethrower's not gonna do that. Kage Bushin's not gonna do that. It's super good. And it's always unlocked too. That's crazy. But once you get to 4BC plus, you take this. All right, Powerful Grenade. So powerful. New mobs weren't a threat on 4BC. Have you gotten to High Peak Castle yet? I mean, you can probably just blow up anything, but certain builds in High Peak Castle get kind of scary. Powerful Grenade, previously an S. It got nerfed in two ways. One, the cooldown got increased. Two, the radius got decreased. So it's actually a little more difficult to full clear entire rooms. Just dropping the nuke inside of a room. And I think, like, just because it got nerfed, it can't be an S. Now, admittedly, I don't actually take Powerful Grenade a lot. And that's because I kind of grew tired of that kind of gameplay. But it still is super effective. Stop Right at Timekeeper was still doing the Wesker build. Yeah, and that... I think you'll be okay in High Peak Castle only because you can like kind of outplay the new enemy with the phaser. But once he does like his other thing, that's when, I mean, you're playing Brutality, so it's kind of okay. But that's when it gets scary. Like if you're playing Tactics, imagine like phaser purple against the new enemy in High Peak Castle. That's probably it feels bad. But maybe you're a beast and like actually got the Ouroboros coming out. Then I can't say anything. Powerful Grenade. Like I said, I got bored of it. Every time we pick it, it works. Not gonna say it doesn't. Against bosses, you're dealing 200 every 13 seconds. I don't like trying to math it out. Over 13 seconds, this does what, 3 times 7, so 21. Technically it does more damage. I think it's better than Cluster Grenade. I think I like Fire Grenade better than Powerful Grenade. So it really just boils down to the bosses. So against most bosses, this damage is like nothing. And I'm pretty sure you can't get a Powerful Grenade that like lights a target on fire or anything like that. Honestly, I don't know if I've ever seen a legendary Powerful Grenade. If anyone out there has seen like a golden bomb, please let me know so I can believe that it exists. I actually don't like it. I kind of think I would take Infantry over the Powerful unless I can't clear biomes. That's really all this cares about. And I know we did have some weapons where we were like, oh, this weapon's a free clear through biomes. It must be like an A rank because you basically get a free pass. Swift Sword isn't very good against bosses, so why is Swift Sword an S and Powerful Grenade's only a B? I think that's because of like the concept of breaking the game. What's up? You got a golden powerful level 4 today? No way. You're just saying that, Tattoo. Pics or it didn't happen. No, if you got one, that's awesome. I love to believe. Cue the X-Files music. I want to believe. I've never seen it. All I get is legendary Spartan sandals. If you want to trade, Tattoo, a legendary New Balance for the golden bomb, I'll take that. I'll even throw in a golden Wings of the Crow. 2 for 1. That's gotta be worth. Good to see you though, Tattoo. So yeah, I think I would take Infantry over it, only because the Infantry does more stuff. Or does it? Huh, I wonder what that looks like. See, I just like the idea of having poison on this. You can get 15% bonus damage on these things as well. That's fun to have. I just don't know if clearing the biomes with these warrants like having it against the boss. And I'm trying to think, so if you have like Infantry plus the Flamethrower on the boss, that gives you enough to clear a biome. If you have this plus Flamethrower, that's enough to clear a biome and fight the boss. Maybe they are both okay. Dropped on 2-cell difficulty in prison depths. Your girlfriend seems to like dead cells as well. Nice. So she gets to use it on the lower difficulty. Yeah, I've been... Oh, and we actually lagged just for a tiny bit there. Sorry about that. I've been seeing a lot of people playing Dead Cells. Like even on Instagram, I follow the Dead Cells hashtag. And I'm just seeing like random stuff. So I know there's definitely people out there playing it. And that's why I kind of like the idea of doing these tier lists. Again, like this is not the end all be all stuff that you should be using and just sell everything else. This is just like from my perspective, trying to get some words to my thoughts as to why I don't take this stuff. Hey, how you doing, PT? Miss Twisted. I wanna actually leave these both as a B. I actually really like Infantry with the poison and powerful destroy stuff, sure. I get it. But thinking to myself, I think there's some stuff in the A rank that I'm actually gonna use over these two. Don't you even disrespect the skills? Yeah, no, these are really good. That's good. It says good right here. I typed that myself. That's how you know it's good. I just don't know if I want it all the time. That's all. See, that's fair. Tornado, though. Let's talk about this tornado. Tornado, one of the hardest items to get in the game, by the way, because it comes from the elite Guardian Knight. So that's High Peak Castle with a monster that has draw in and like really high damage. What puts Destructive Orb in C? So Death Orb is green only now. So you can only take Death Orb as survival. You could chase for a curse version, and that's why it's in the C tier, because maybe a curse version might do something like really cool with some of the other builds. But the green version, there's other stuff I think I'd rather take over a Death Orb. Even if the concept is you throw the Death Orb down a hallway while you go do something else, I don't know if that's worth. And again, this is like 4BC plus, so the monster HP bars are much higher. I don't know if that's worth skipping out on some of the other survival items in that slot. Tornado though, the last time we did Tornado, it was a D. Holy moly. Yo, that's probably correct. So Tornado, I used to pick Tornado all the time when I was using Parting Gift. That was my favorite setup, where you have Parting Gift, you use Marksman Bow, you kill one enemy, you throw the Tornado down the hallway, bombs start exploding. It's really cool. And then cooldown reduction got nerfed, and that became not cool because you can't do that on bosses. Like, you end up fighting a boss with a 24-second cooldown on your L2. Maybe it applies poison. Maybe it applies oil. I can get that and more from any other. I can get that off Wave of Denial. I can get poison on Wave, oil on Lacerating Aura, poison, bleed, poison, poison and bleed. I don't know what this does. Never seen that item before. Just scroll up. So it's like, why? I think the concept, so in 4BC Plus, you push all the enemies and then they live. That's like the problem. They live. So the runners, you're pushing runners and failed experiments out, and then the tornado brings them right back to you. And it's like, if I'm playing tactics, why am I gonna want this thing to bring the monsters back to me? It needs to kill them as it pushes them out, or it shouldn't bring monsters back. It should only push them outward. And I don't know like how they can make that a thing, unless tornado like just constantly whips forward. Even if you were to go the old-fashioned Parting Gift, Hunter's Instinct, now you're already like rocking 2 purple mutations. Like, why? I could just use like Quick Bow and just kill everything. This is borderline pointless. If I wanted something to keep monsters back, I'll just use Wolf Trap. After dinner, you think it's time to get back in the fray? Big same. Back in the fray of talking is what I'm gonna be doing. Yeah, so Tornado, it's a D. It's not an F, because if you took Parting Gift early, then you will probably want to use this thing. And you would take Parting Gift with something like Javelin or something like Marksman Bow. Something that you basically might kill something at range, and you just want it to kill whatever else is over there. You haven't even seen what's over there yet. You just want stuff to start dying. You don't really do that with Quick Bow. Quick Bow, you kind of want to see the enemy, because you need to, I mean, you can shoot into the dark if you really want to. Doesn't really matter because it's an S rank item. Heavy crossbow, you don't do that either, because you just one-shot the monster. You don't need Parting Gift in that case. And everything you one-shot's right next to you, so you can't like kill stuff in the dark. So I'm okay with it being a D. That means we're going back up to double crossbow-matic. Double crossbow, we actually have been using this also. Previously, this thing was a C. Yes, this is all skill, so all trigger items. Owls, wormettes, all your pets, your Beastmaster items right here. So double crossbow, I used to have this a C because I was worried about A, the damage it deals, B, the affixes it gets, and C, if it can aim up. I think when I put it as a C, that was assuming that it doesn't actually shoot up and it shoots left to right, just like Sinew Slicer. And then we played dead cells. We went into the giant. I put down the double crossbow-matic, and it shoots up. Like, it shoots surprisingly well against the giant's fist. I was super surprised that it could even do that. And then for the affixes, it gets shots fire, trail of flame, and I think that alone is super good. So it's not a C. I think it's good enough to be a B. Question is, could it possibly be an A? Because this thing can actually kill stuff. Damage wise, it fires 2 shots at 45, so it like does 90. So this thing, it does damage, purple only, so this is only for tactics. It does fire upward, so you don't have to worry about if you can fight the giant or not. It doesn't do a lot more than that. It's just like constant damage. So when we think about Barnacle versus double crossbow, Barnacle actually has almost all the same affixes as this thing does. They both have fire, they can both do oil, they both shoot very well, like very hard to miss. Barnacle only lasts 9 seconds and has a 10-second cooldown, so there's no real like downtime for using the Barnacle. So I wonder, when would you pick double crossbow over Barnacle? So if I was fighting Conjunctivius, I think you take double crossbow. If I was fighting Concierge, doesn't matter. If you're fighting Timekeeper, probably doesn't matter. Hand of the King, double crossbow, but also probably doesn't matter. Maybe they're just as good as each other. I don't know why you would choose double crossbow over Barnacle. It's gotta be an affix thing. There's just some fights where the Barnacle like is kind of awkward to place. And that's kind of like a skill thing. Like maybe it's not that bad so long as you don't place it poorly. But we've been winning some games with double crossbow-matic. Like I said, just being able to do stuff with a turret is really good. It kind of sucks comparing like infantry grenade to this. So we'll just keep it going, and then maybe we'll think about if an item needs to come up or if it needs to drop down. Cluster. Cluster is this, not the Cleaver. Previously, this thing was a C, and it was a C because it was fun to use. And every once in a while, you can get like an elite that you can just pop with a cluster grenade. Yeah, so Dimitito, we're not... Usually when we do this tier list, stuff moves around a lot. So basically, we'll go through and we'll say, you know what? I'm not really using powerful... Well, I'm not using cluster over these two. So guaranteed I have to drop it down. But maybe the cluster's better than the stuff that's in the C tier. So then I would say, you know what? I actually like cluster. It's okay sometimes. So I'll actually bring this up because I would take it over cluster. But I don't think cluster is even a B. Just to say that. I think it is okay as a C. It's like just okay. Again, this is 4BC plus, so there's some situations where a cluster doesn't kill anything at all. So cluster, I think there's cluster grenades that actually apply oil. And it's okay. Again, if I'm gonna apply oil, why won't I just use oil grenade or lacerating aura? And it's like, it's tough to compare everything to lacerating aura. That's definitely not like the bar. If Lacerating Aura was the bar, then everything would probably be an F tier. So I think it's only about as good as Tornado. And that's basically saying that as soon as I find a replacement for this thing's going in the garbage can. But for now, Prison Quarters, Toxic Sewers, Promenade, I'll use it. You know, a little something to get me by, it's fine. But as soon as I get that Flamethrower, no spoilers for the tier list. We're speaking hypothetically here. As soon as I get that Flamethrower, this thing's going in the garbage can. Not even recycling. Well, recycle whenever you can. But if there's no recycle bin there, it's going in the wastebasket. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Rainbow build. That's a challenge. I failed the challenge the other day. I tried. I really did. But then I was cursed against Timekeeper. And I died on her very first hit. So it wasn't meant to be. Yeah, kind of useless in 4BC plus. I like the concept of lower everything's HP for me. Like, here's a big hallway, just lower its health. I go in with the Hayabusa gauntlets, and I can just one tap every monster. Like, that seems okay. But what if you just use Powerful Grenade? And just kill them all? What if you just use Knife Dance with the Pierceation on it, and then actually have something useful for a boss? What if you have the Oil Grenade, and then you just ignite the entire hallway, and while monsters are running at you, then their HP is dropping? So I don't think it's any better than Tornado, to be honest, in terms of how quickly you get rid of it. Next. Big next. Knife Dance. Knife Dance is actually one of my favorite items in the game. It does, so 4BC plus, remember that. It does bleed, and then you can also get a Knife Dance that does bleeding causes poisoning. You get a Knife Dance that has Extendo Bleed, bleeding across the map every time something dies. You can get move speed, if that's your thing. Damage wise, and it often pierces too. Like, I know that's not guaranteed, but it often pierces. Damage wise, it does damage on every hit. So against a monster, you want to run up bosses. Let's think Concierge. Against Concierge, you want to run up to it, press L2 inside its body, and just like burst it from the inside. Probably get like a good 4 or 5 shuriken into it, and then you go out the other side, and then you get a decent amount of like bleed stacks going. 4 seconds worth. So if you get 4 shuriken in its body, then it's actually gonna be bleeding for the entire 16 seconds, which is kind of cool. Yo, Jayhawk, how you doing? I don't think it's an S. Previously we had this thing as an A, and that was because we have what? We have both purple and red. Back in the day, we only had red Sadist Stiletto. Stiletto can be purple now. So you get Stiletto with this thing, with Instincto, reducing the cooldown on bosses. It's beautiful. Knife Dance. This is where we get into Dimitito's argument. Is Powerful Grenade really like a B and not an A? And the answer comes from something like this. We have to decide, if you're playing Brutality and this thing is not an S, would you take this over Powerful Grenade? My answer is yes. If someone had like the Knife Dance versus the Powerful Grenade for me, I think I actually take the Knife Dance. Obviously it depends on what it does, but when we're talking like boss wise, I'm pretty sure Knife Dance blows Powerful Grenade out of the water. Where we're talking like fighting elites, Powerful Grenade is okay if it one-shots. Like, sure, thank you, it one-shotted it. A clap on both hands. Round of applause for Powerful Grenade. Good job. Knife Dance, it will probably kill something. It won't one-shot an elite by itself, but because you're using Brutality, you got the Hayabusas, you got the not meat skewer, you got the Spartan Sandals. Who cares about Powerful Grenade? When you got Spartan Sandals combined with this thing, it's nuts. Kappa. When you got... You can even do like a fake ranged Brutality build using Hunter's Instinct and actually do some real stuff. You can do things like Torch. And basically the concept is the slasher spawns. How do you kill the slasher fast enough that doesn't warrant you having a Powerful Grenade? And I think if you take any good emphasis on good Brutality weapon, so like B and higher, Knife Dance is superior to Powerful Grenade. Only because you're also gonna take the Powerful Grenade. I mean, you're only gonna take the Knife Dance into the boss too. And you might have something like the crit cooldown reduction off Stiletto, or the sadism's gone. Some kind of bleed affixes. A lot of this stuff will get bleed affixes, which is really nice. I wish I had the math to math out like 200 damage versus... I don't know where my math majors are at right now, but the 200 damage versus the... let's assume 15 for 3 knives. 3 stacks of bleed. But again, I don't want to math it out. So I'm gonna leave Knife Dance as an A for now, just to see like how we could actually raise that up into the higher divisions. Heavy Turret. So the Heavy Turret double whistle is super fun. I've actually never done double whistle ever, I think. I've had a lot of runs, so someone might like fact check that, but I'm pretty sure I've always had something else. Heavy Turret. So previously, Heavy Turret was an S. With 2 enemies around, double crossbow does more DPS than Heavy Turret. So Heavy Turret got nerfed. I actually don't remember if this tier list was before the nerfs or after the nerfs. But we left it as an S because it does multiple things. And again, like doing multiple things is really good right now. So Heavy Turret, it's a stun. Oh, it was a question, I'm sorry. So Heavy Turret by itself deals 110. 2 shots from this deals 90. So technically it deals less damage and it actually pumps your damage up. And it stuns. And sometimes it applies oil to the ground. I think it can get poison as well if you're playing 4 BC and higher. So it actually still does a lot of stuff. And how do we not keep this thing as an S? That's a real interesting question. Some real thinkies right there. So a lot of people stopped using this thing because it stopped one-shotting monsters. And that's fair, I'm sure. But the fact that it like stuns on hit, I guess it doesn't really stun on hit, it just has a really good breach. Maybe we still don't have breach. No, we don't. Yeah, I don't think this thing actually has stun on hit. It just does so much breach damage that enemies like can't not stagger out of being hit. Keeping 1 Heavy Turret is a beautiful curse cleaner plus mini stun. Yeah, so just like the Wolf Trap does multiple things. And it has crowd control in the kit. This other stuff doesn't. So for the people who stopped using heavy turret, I think it's mostly because it's kind of slow. There's some fast monsters now like the Rampager running you down in mid lane. You need something that actually like just kills it. Stopping it is sometimes not enough. If you're playing tactics, not killing it can be a problem. If you're playing survival, it's fine, doesn't really matter. Like, I'm looking at this right now, I can already see some stuff that I would probably take over a heavy turret. But for now, I think we leave it as an S. Because if you get this one that pierces the target, ooh, so good. Like, all you have to do is activate it, and it just works. Unlike some of these other things. I guess you're playing tactics, so unlike stuff like... Some of this is spoiler, and I don't want to get too into it. But if you're running tactics, and you're getting like... Say you want just the crowd control, so you're gonna go like stun, or ice, or root grenade. You could just drop a heavy turret. And it'll... I mean, it won't kill bats. But other than that, it's probably better than some of these grenades. The trifecta of CC grenades. First one on the list, ice. Talking about crowd control. This thing is on an 18-second cooldown. It is actually the longest cooldown. Oh, it's tied with stun. It's always unlocked, so remember, this is a baby item. It's for beginners, people in the lower divisions. Nothing wrong with that, because Wolf Trap was in the lower divisions too, and it's an S right now. Like, top contender. Ice Grenade, however, is not an S. And the reason why, so it's really cool to have a grenade that kills bats. Like, that's awesome. You're playing tactics. They actually took out brutality ice grenades. Now it's survival. So you have to think to yourself, okay, a survival ice grenade. Obviously tactics is whatever, because I have like all these turrets that can kind of do crowd control. I basically have 1, 2, if I'm playing tactics, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where's Tornado at? I already have it placed. 7. So like a lot of different kinds of crowd control, all with different kinds of durations. But Ice Grenade can also be green. So for purple, I would say it's probably like a D. So what Ice Grenade actually gives you is it gives you damage reduction. So again, you're talking like this super tank purple 9,000 HP build. Like, okay. It can apply bleed. I'm sorry, I was gonna say poison. It can apply bleed. So as monsters thaw, they actually bleed out. And that's kind of cool. Obviously, you have other sources of blood. So again, you can replace it with that. But green, though, a green ice grenade. You're thinking Nutcracker, you're thinking assault rifle, you're thinking broadsword. All those should probably kill enemies by themselves, but maybe you just get unlucky and you need to actually throw a grenade sometimes. Might actually be okay. I don't think it's an instance though. Very helpful against the giant. How so? Because I don't think it freezes the giant's fists, but does it slow the giant's attacks like from both the fists? Or does it like make them bleed, which is like very useful for survival? Survival is like really lacking in blood. I'll admit I have never tried that. I would love to see it though. That sounds really entertaining. let's assume that this does like slow down bosses. So again, you're playing tactics, you have quick bow. Let's say if you have quick bow plus a turret plus ice grenade because you got like massively unlucky. You're fighting Timekeeper. You throw out the turret, you throw the grenade, she's slowed, and then you just go to town. That's probably not that bad. You can combine that with Instincto. You can probably get like a grenade back pretty quickly. I wish I knew how long they like thaw. Because say that they thaw for 5 seconds, I think that would be like kinda okay for something like quick bow. Like if you're using an S rank item and all you need is like time, then I think that's awesome. You can get time from Wolf Trap though, so definitely not an S. I can get time and damage reduction. I guess you can't discount the damage reduction. See, but it's like, what if I just use an owl? But then again, like an owl is possibly an S. I'm not gonna say it is because that's a spoiler. The Cleaver. What does this look like? So previously, the ice grenade was a C. Yeah, maybe I can actually think about it this way. Does ice grenade deserve a demotion? Now that it's taken out of red, we weren't really using red ice grenades anyway. The only reason I would use red ice is because stun didn't drop. Stun also got changed to green as well. So if I were to run green, I think it's okay. If I were to run purple, I think I would rather have some turrets over it. But it's not a lot of turrets that actually stop the monster. I don't know, that sounds like fun gameplay to just get time. And maybe time is like really important. Would Giant get resistance super fast? So that depends. We don't know if killing a fist resets its diminishing returns. You can do a lot of outplays with the ice grenade. I think I'm willing to have it as a C. I think I would still take some other options over it, but maybe, and again, this is why we have a C tier, because there's the potential that there's some unknown builds out there. Again, all I play is boomerangs, I guess. And if you think about it, boomerang with the ice grenade, probably not terrible, but then like you have no damage. Like you'd rather have like 2 damage sources. I don't know. So I'm willing to leave that as a C. That's fine. All right, I gotta do 2 more. Next one is Corrupted Power. Ooh, chat. So Corrupted Power got changed as well. They took it off green and made it red-purple. And to be quite honest, I have not used red Corrupted Power. Like, I kinda don't like it. So there was a GIF on Reddit today. I think it was another Master Kyurem gift as in like he gifted us another GIF. Thank you. Where it's the Hayabusa gauntlets combined with the Corrupted Power, and I think there was also like Hayabusa boots in that too. And it's okay. My question is, like, could I have done more off Knife Dance? Could I have done more damage-wise off Phaser, I guess? I mean, there's a duration. I think the Hayabusas are kind of special because that's like the big DPS, like big attack speed items that you can just dump off corrupted power damage. Shrapnel axe, you can kind of do that with. If you're purple, you can do that with quick bow. Combine it with the corrupted power instincto for the cooldown reduction. You can do something with like infantry bow, where you pop that, you run up to enemies, and you will probably one-shot every enemy. Heavy crossbow, the shoddy, I would probably not do that. We thought maybe you can do that with meat skewer. Maybe like the ultimate meat skewer build. Raphael from Soul Calibur. Demon mode. You're just running. Skewer. With the corrupted power active. Get the cooldown reduction going. Off Hunter's Instinct. Go invisible. Because apparently Raphael can do that. I didn't know. I didn't watch the manga. Roll. Skewer the next one. Go invisible again. What's the duration on this? 8 seconds. 16-second cooldown. So let's say you cleave 2 seconds off. It goes down to 10 seconds. 2 seconds of downtime. Maybe that's actually okay. Previously, I had this thing as a B tier. I don't think it's good enough to be an A, because I honestly don't know how I skip Knife Dance over the corrupted power. And you might say like that's because this thing should be an S. And if this is an S, then you can bring this up. But I don't know if I'm there yet. I got some stuff to talk about amongst everything else, but I don't know if I'm here yet. This is like scary to me. I know this is good. That's why it's a B. I don't think it's a C because I don't think you need to draw Exodia to make this thing work. I don't think you need 2 Graceful Charities in your deck actually cheating to make Corrupted Power work. I just don't know how many more items I would take over the Corrupted Power. I guess looking at the grenades here, I would probably take Infantry over Corrupted Power. So this thing, actually what's really nice about Corrupted Power is you don't have to fish for affixes. It will almost always, if you're playing 4BC+, generate toxicity around you. Maybe it drops oil on the ground. Why, I don't know. Why like going Super Saiyan makes all this oil and your skin's all shiny? I don't know, but it just does it. And then electricity. And the starter fix is maybe something like it ignites the oil that's next to you, or you get like bonus move speed, I guess. You can get like a volley of arrows that fire out. That's kind of cool, I guess, on bosses. The old Barney. That was previously an A tier. I don't think it's an S, because honestly, I get some super underwhelming Barnacles. I've had it before. Even the shots that fire, don't really like ignite every single time. Barnacle though, I don't think it's an S. As far as keeping it as an A, that's gonna be super tough to me. Now remember, this thing's tactics only, so we have to decide, are we using double crossbow-matic over Barnacle? Part of me wants to say yes, but I don't know if that's right. I'm having like a really hard time trying to figure out if I really value double crossbow so highly that I'm willing to make Barnacle a B. And hey, B stands for Barnacle. That's fair, right? Would I take Knife Dance over Barnacle? Absolutely. I'm such a huge fan of Knife Dance. Except I didn't make it an S. If I were to choose a turret, I would take Barnacle over this thing for sure. Barnacle over Crusher if it's purple, yes. Cleaver, I don't know. I've been like kind of digging Cleaver for some reason. But again, I don't know if that can ever be an A just because of what it does. Flamethrower? That's a thing. I don't know. Flamethrower's kind of decent. Heavy, already an S. So, and I hate this. Technically, it does more damage than double crossbow to single target. I wish it, yeah, we already talked about that, the duration. I'm gonna lock this in for now. Skills, part 1. Like I said, it's gonna take me like 3 days to do this. And I really need to play some dead cells so that I can like experiment with some of this stuff. Maybe we'll see the ice grenade and we'll decide if it needs to go up or down. Maybe we'll find a barnacle and it's like, okay, this item's mega busted, giga busted, and we gotta put it somewhere else. Powerful grenade. Now, as I said, I actually watched a stream yesterday. We did a redo over to Dace, and Dace was playing with double powerful, just like back in the ye olden days when we were just taking powerful grenade every time we saw it. The reason why I had powerful grenade as a B was because I wasn't confident on how it does against bosses. But if you have really any kind of dot, if you have the poison, if you have the bleed, if you have the fire, and you get any of those on a roll for this can also just get free 15% bonus damage for no reason, absolutely uncalled for. It does real damage on bosses. Like, yeah, it's on the 12-second cooldown, but when I was watching it, I was dissecting the entire game. They were going through the biomes. He went Sepulcher. No, he went to Clock Tower. So it was Stilt Village to Clock Tower, and double powerful grenade still works exactly as you think it does. It might not one-shot a golem, and it might not one-shot a gangplank, but it still actually does real damage if you get the affixes to it. So I think I'm gonna bring this up to at least an A. As we start going through the tier list, I might consider bringing it to an S rank, only because double powerfuls still give you like almost unlosable biome clearing power. Like, you get to a point where if something scares you in 5BC and you threw the grenades at it, you can just run, wait out the 12 seconds, and then throw more grenades at it. Fire grenade. Fire grenade was previously as a B tier, and it was B back before things like, well, fire got nerfed at one point. You used to be able to get like very high damage numbers. I want to say 60% fire damage, and they nerfed it down to 30% because they figured that there's way too much fire out in the world. You can get amulets that just put fire on the ground. So it became a little too easy to just spew out fire. So they decided to nerf the affixes. So everything just deals a little less damage than, say, poison. But fire itself is actually fairly strong. Fire grenade, which is on a 13 second, so same as powerful, puts out the burning. I have no way to like measure this though. So the real issue with like going for numbers, and I hate looking at numbers for the tier list, when you start thinking about, okay, fire lasts on the ground for 5 seconds, the monster's gonna burn 5 seconds, 5 times 25 plus 12, blah blah blah. I feel like that's a little convoluted. Yeah, there's some stuff we have to look at damage, but I don't want to get that deep into it. So I think at face value, fire grenade is just as good as powerful grenade. Not only does this have like the same cooldown, same spammability, but it might lack in one-shot potential, but it unlocks all your other items that deal bonus damage to fire. Or you could be rocking something like the oil sword, you get the crits. You could rock something like Wolf Trap that deals bonus or puts oil on the target. Wolf Trap also does that. You can even do the old-fashioned oil grenade. Feel like that's a little a little extra to rock both the oil grenade and the fire grenade, but it's fun. It's just fun to ignite the entire map. It is brutality only, so it's one of the skills that they didn't actually touch in 1.4. So for the most part, I would take it with just about any weapon. If you're playing brutality, that is. So two-handed weapons, single-handed weapons like the Spite Sword. You combine that with Instincto crits, cooldown reduction on your fire grenade, bosses are dying. You get something like Infantry Bow with Hunter's Instinct, and you get free biome clears that way. Even though Hunter's Instinct is purple, even though you're going red, you'll still get like a good half a second off on every single kill. Fire grenade might kill 2 enemies on its own, so by the time you actually have to shoot stuff, you're probably like 2 seconds, 3 seconds off the cooldown. I think it's good. I really do. Most games I will take it over powerful, but I'm trying to get back into using powerful because I know people use it. I just fell out of love with powerful grenades. Alright, next is Vampirism. So Vamp, True Blood, Eric Northman in Dead Cells, except not as pretty. So True Blood is like, we were talking on Dead Cells Discord where there's items that are insta-sell, and there's also items that you use it once and then you sell it. So it's like, is it really an F tier if you actually use it once and then you drop it? I don't know. What are Instincto crits? That's an excellent question, Speedy. So I'm so sorry. So people come in, they might be new to the channel, they might watch some stuff on YouTube, they don't really watch like me die 24/7 on stream, but we have some language that we affectionately call things new names when we play Dead Cells. So there's cooldown reduction, and the cooldown reduction all have different names. So there's Killer Instinct, which is red. There's Hunter's Instinct, which is purple. And then Instincto, which has like a really long name. Instinct of the Master of Arms. So we've been calling it Instincto ever since, because I can't say that whole thing. So Vampirism, you can't have it as an S. You honestly can't have it as anything but an F. We tried. We really tried. And how are you doing, Asunder? The real concept that we thought this thing works as is True Blood actually applies bleed for 20 seconds. So imagine you're fighting Concierge. Concierge, big old punching bag. You pop True Blood and you have 800 DPS. And that's it. I mean, yeah, you get bleeding and like all your other stuff that deals bonus damage to bleeding. It's okay if you can kill it in 20 seconds, that's awesome. But 800 damage, and that's it. In 20 seconds. I could take a powerful grenade and deal half of that in 20 seconds. It's not good. It can't be. We tried it. We went into Concierge. I popped the True Blood. The bleed was there, but it's not enough to like actually move the HP bar in any significant fashion. Like I'm really skeptical about this 40 DPS for 20 seconds. I don't know if that's true or not. I feel like maybe I did 40 damage, like 2 damage a second. That sounds about right. But until they rework this thing, I think it has to stay as an F. Really, you should leave it on the ground, so it's not quite an instance though. You leave it, go through the biome, see if you take any hits, and then if you get hit, go grab it, walk into a mob, press the button. It's gonna aggro a lot of monsters, but if you're lucky and you have bats, birds, stuff like that, it would normally just kill them outright. All right, next, Flamethrower. So flaming our teammates for being bad players. This thing honestly has won me so many games. It can get oil, so you're actually igniting oil, so it does even more damage than what the this thing says it does. It gives you fire, so obviously if you're running something that does bonus damage to fire, that's awesome. But the other thing this does, the other thing is you can get a flamethrower that has damage reduction. And that is like the best flamethrower you could ever ask for. Yeah, minus 25% damage reduction. It is so helpful. Like, I've straight up survived games that I didn't deserve to win. Basically hard carried by the flamethrower. Flamethrower should be flaming me at this point for being that bad. But when you get that 25%, it is so good. There are other things, like I think Barnacle can get it. I want to say Heavy Turret can get it, but Flamethrower I just prefer over Barnacle because it's kind of a set and forget. Like, yeah, you can set and forget the Barney, but there's some positioning required, like maybe it's gonna miss shots and stuff like that. And Flamethrower can also hit the Giant's Fist. Obviously Barnacle can do that too, but you can actually place the Flamethrower to hit both fists and get actual damage out on the Giant. It's actually kind of useful. Vampirism did infinite bleed. It could be non-F. All turrets have minus 25 and plus 10. I don't know if I've seen a double crossbow that has it. If anyone has, definitely let me know. I don't know if that's enough to pump it up into the S tier, but I would say I haven't seen it personally. But very well could be out there. So, Flamethrower, really, you can take this thing any day of the week. Unless I desperately needed to one-shot monsters, even then, Flamethrower can kill stuff. You can just put the Flamethrower on the ground and just walk. You can do that with a lot of these turrets, but I feel like Flamethrower is just good. There. 6-second cooldown is the MVP of everything. Yeah, you don't, so when you're running purple, you don't even have to run Hunter's Instinct if you're doing this. You could do something like Instincto, this plus Lacerating Aura, and then not have to worry about biome clears with Hunter's Instinct, because this is gonna do perfectly fine on 6 seconds. Yo. Let's go ahead and get this one out of the way. Day 2, Syringe. For those who haven't seen it, Syringe is the spin to win item right here. This one is only obtainable if you're playing on the 5th boss cell. It's designed to be broken. It's like a meme item. It's like a meme. You don't take it because you need some kind of like high power, like, oh man, I can't believe I like didn't get the items I want. all I can do is go Syringe. Man, I wish I could have gotten something else. You're basically taking Syringe only if that's like your goal of the night. Like, I just, almost like Diablo style. Like, I have no real need to actually do anything competitive. Shoutouts to my competitive Diablo players. I just want to blow stuff up with like no remorse for my own health or the enemy's health, for that matter. Cleaver. Now, I've been watching people actually using Cleaver, unironically. And they have actually been getting decent cleavers. Cleavers that actually do stuff. And it works when it actually like connects to a target. Yeah, it's probably gonna die to bats and stuff like that. Well, not it, you will. You'll die to the bat, the cleaver's fine. That's a Jigsaw from the Saw movies, for those who don't know. Saw actually does stuff. Now, is it good enough to be an S? Probably not. Would I take Jigsaw over Knife Dance or Flamethrower? Probably not. Yeah, so I found out, I was watching a clip from Shaq. I didn't even like look at the purpose of the clip. What I immediately saw was that hand's bleeding. And I don't think it's supposed to, because Cleaver is like so low to the ground. But come to find out, it will actually hit the giant's hand. It's not like high enough to hit bats. That's still a thing. But against the giant, against Concierge, against even Conjunctivius sometimes, if you get like really good positioning on it. Sometimes Timekeeper, and definitely Hand of the King. Cleaver will hit all of those. It's just not that good to be an A. Promoted. Double promotions. Wow, double promoted into the B tier. You're really gonna take Cleaver over Barnacle? Barnacle does 52. Cleaver does the same damage with a bleed tied to it. The only difference is it can't kill bats. This can. This also gives you, and you can get like oil and fire off the Barnacle. Those are okay, but the fire Barnacle doesn't always apply the fire. It needs like to travel a certain way and put fire on the ground. So if a monster is directly below Barney, it doesn't actually ignite them on fire, which is awful. A matter of fact, I borderline want that item to be a C. But I'm waiting because I think I'm gonna have more stuff in the B tier. And I really don't want B tier to be as saturated as it was back in May. So Cleaver, it doesn't one-shot monsters, of course, so still would probably take Powerful over it. Doesn't really kill elites on its own. You do have to interact with the monster. I know that's ultra lame, actually having to fight the monster. Cleaver and the other turrets are busted. Got a pick with plus 100% poison Cleaver. Man, I love those so much. I feel like turrets are really strong right now. Or traps in general. Traps in general are just really strong right now. I wonder what this looks like. Am I really that much of a Barnacle hater? That's really my main contention right now. Is in what scenario would I take a Barnacle over a Cleaver? I want to say, like nowadays, I just don't value Barnacles anymore. I don't know what it is. Not to say it's a bad item. I know you all probably work really hard to unlock the Barnacle, but the point where I'm at right now, I honestly don't care about the Barnacle that much. And maybe it becomes this, where both of them are C tier. Maybe it becomes this, where Barnacle's a D tier. I don't know. But I think the fact that Cleaver can apply so much stuff. Barnacle can really only have the chance at applying fire, and even then it's like inconsistent, and it's also like oil too. But I feel like this is just way too inconsistent. It just gives like little pop shots, and if I wanted to do that, I could probably run owls. But then again, you all know where owl probably lands on this list, so it's hard to compare. I do like that though, so we'll leave it as is. A little over halfway for the skill tier list, we got everybody's old favorite, Magnetic Grenade, which actually got buffed. Magnetic Grenade got a buff. 110% agree with Flamethrower ranking. It's beautiful. Probably one of my favorite items right now. Magnetic Grenade though, for those who don't know, and maybe it was version 1.4, it could have been like version 1.3.5 or something, I don't know, but it actually got a buff where all of the grenades that it draws in, it converts those grenades into friendly bombs. Also, eggs. If you have a purulent zombie that throws eggs at you, Magnetic Grenade will actually not really absorb, but it'll convert those angry worms into cute wormettes. It's fun. There's only one build I feel that makes it remotely viable, and that's purple Hokuto with a purple magnetic. I don't think there's any other version of Magnetic Grenade that's actually any good. And you can actually, just like Electro Whip, I think you can draw Exodia with Magnetic Grenades, where they will just like rip through the entire biome. So long as you have like the rest of, once you have like the left hand, the right hand, left foot, right foot, Magnetic Grenades are like the both feet. How you act, oh, the Hokuto's bow is the left hand, Hunter's Instinct is the right hand, and then Parting Gift is the body of Exodia. 5 items. Well, 3 items and 2 mutations to actually make Magnetic viable. Do enemies still warp to you even when Magnetic? I don't believe so. They actually have to interact with you somehow. Last I played, anyway. I had one Magnetic Grenade when we did the Steam like store page stream. I don't think I've used it since then. I feel like I just don't get all the cards in one hand, and when you don't, I don't want to invest in Magnetic Grenades. Sounds like we need a Magnetic Grenade run to figure it out. Let's go. Maybe, like I said, let me just get all the cards, and I don't mind doing it. That's why I kind of want it as a C tier. I'll definitely take like almost every other item in the game with it, but similar to... There's something on the melee tier list where it's like actually good. Oh, Assault Crossbow. So the Assault Crossbow, Repeater Crossbow, is another scenario where you can draw Exodia with like Wolf Trap, Instincto, maybe another turret to go along with it. I don't think you really need another turret. And that's really only 3 items to make your build like actually winnable. So I think I like Magnetic as a C. We'll start to explore a little bit more to try to figure out if it really should stay as the C tier or if it should drop just like Cluster. But I feel like the difference between that and Cluster Grenade is that I almost feel like Cluster Grenade's never good unless you're desperate. And when you're desperate, stuff starts looking real nice. And again, I know there are big fans of Cluster Grenade. I'm not saying please stop using Cluster Grenade. Please continue using the cluster. If it's clearing your biomes, perfectly usable. But for my streams, I am like starving for any kind of item when I'm running around with a cluster grenade. That's just me. Again, this is a Veedotme 4BC plus tier list. So some items just don't get play, and cluster grenade's one of them. Grapple hook though. So grapple hook is one of the other changes. Remember, this is version 1.4. We have multiple skill changes, multiple grenade changes, multiple, well, this is a power. So powers, skills. I don't think any turrets were changed, but this thing got changed. It's no longer green, which is kind of sucky because we used to go broadsword, you do the horizontal slash, grapple hook to like interrupt their attack, and then you do the upswing, and that will kill pretty much any monster in the game. And then we played purple grapple hook that applies oil, and then we got the ice shard. And we had the unbeatable setup, unblockable setup, where you throw the ice shards into the air, then you rake the monsters into the ice shards, applying that oil, that petroleum on their bodies, and then they just pop once they go through the ice shard. So you're actually doing it in the opposite order. You throw first, and then you rake. And that is like insane. You put that, I mean, you don't really have to go Hunter's Instinct in that case, but you want to be able to spam that. Yeah, so we've had multiple games now with with grapple hook. We also had a grapple hook phaser combo where I forget what weapon we used, but we one-shot really every monster in the game. There was just one like scenario where I think it was like a Guardian Knight Elite that we did not actually one-shot. You just died. Oh, I remember. Sadist Stiletto. We had Sadist Stiletto. We had a grapple hook that applied oil. No, a grapple hook that bled, and a phaser that poisoned. So you grapple hook, you get them bleeding, you phaser onto them that applies the poison, and then you just tap them like a pretty little fairy godmother tap on the shoulder with a Sadist Stiletto. Popped every single enemy. It was probably the most fun I've had playing purple, melee purple, in years. Red grapple hook is whatever. So I don't think it's an S. Brutality grapple hooks, I feel like aren't all that great, because there's a lot of brutality items that won't one-shot a monster even if you get the damage bonus. So let's say you're going Hayabusas, either Hayabusa, any kind of boot, wrenching whip, Valmont's whip. I think there's a lot of brutality weapons that it doesn't necessarily work well with, so it's probably not like the highest capability when you just grab it. So I don't think it could be an A either, only because there's a lot of weapons that don't interact very well with it, even though at that point it's just like an interruption. Grapple plus pan, so that's a reason to actually like attack face with the pan. Remember, we don't like the pan because I want to be able to roll, and if I'm gonna roll, then I may as well just use Assassin Dagger, because then I'm probably behind enemies more often than in front of them. But grapple hook, admittedly, I haven't found the full capability of this item. I think it's actually good enough to use in multiple scenarios, but because I don't know what those are yet, I think it's probably good, which is the name of this tier. Probably good. It can potentially get into the A tier, but I think that's like super weapon dependent and super affix dependent. So we'll see. We'll experiment with it more. Don't worry, we will see more grapple hooks. Mark my words. So next skill is Phaser. Phaser, I want to say, is better than grapple hook in most scenarios. Now, previously, let's look at the last list. We had grapple hook as a C tier, Phaser as a B tier. Phaser was B because we said there were too many tactics items that you will not take if you saw a tactics Phaser. So let's look at like stuff that's not S tier. So purple. Actually, I don't think there's a lot of purple items that we didn't have as an S tier that I would take with the Phaser. Do not disrespect the Phaser. Yeah, infantry bow, that is a great example. And that's not an S. We've also had scenarios where we go like boy axe, where you throw the boy, Phaser in, rip the boy out, dead monster. We've had marksman, which is kind of lame, but you can do it. Really, any bow, you can fire the shot, Phaser in, and then get the bonus damage off the shot if you're fast enough. Obviously, there's some stuff that locks you in place, so it's not super viable. And then some stuff where you don't really want to be on top of monsters, so in that case, it's not that great. Not marksman, I'm sorry. Even though you're running an instant transmission Goku style, this is actually the Vegeta weapon, so you can't go instant transmission with the Gallic gun. So I'm still of the opinion that there's not a lot of stuff you would take Phaser with, but when you do take the Phaser, it's still really strong, so it's not an S. We can say that much. Straight up super fun, I agree. The outplay potential is huge. I can have like a video just on Phaser by itself. And yes, so M is right. The other scenario is the red Phaser. I feel like every red item is viable with Phaser. Even two-handed items like Seismic Strike. You can go this thing, Shrapnel Axe. Swift Sword. Swift Sword with Phaser, super fun. Any monster that you couldn't one-shot before you actually get your crits, you'll one-shot with the Phaser. Broadsword, you go in, hit them with a horizontal, instant transmission to the other side, hit them with the vertical, dodge attacks. Failed Experiments, you can Phaser behind Failed Experiment, stop him midair, he'll actually stop his jump and fall, execute from the back. Same thing with Concierge, you can do that. You can do that with bats. Phaser behind the bat. Sometimes it doesn't kill it, so you have to be like super careful. Phaser behind other stuff, I'm sure. Like M was saying, with the bleed, Phaser actually applies melee mutations. So you can take Phaser with actual melee, apply the slow, start beating on them with the Hayabusas. Infinite slow lockdown. Phaser with open wounds. Sadist Stiletto. Instant crits. You don't even need a Phaser that applies bleed. I don't know if there is a such thing, but you take open wounds with Phaser. You can do that purple too. It will always apply the bleed. Doesn't matter if you're red. You go purple Phaser, hit them with the open wounds. It's like a baby assassin dagger, except you can also run like Corrosive Cloud against bosses or something like that, or Alchemic Carbine for the boss. All kinds of, well, once you're getting Carbine, you probably want to ditch open wounds. Carbine with open wounds is a little redundant, but if you're running like Corrosive Cloud, that's when you would take Phaser, Stiletto, open wounds, and it's so nice. So if we were to average red Phaser versus purple Phaser, I would say red Phaser, borderline S tier. almost can't go wrong with red phaser. Purple phaser, probably still a B, even though we have some brand new purple melee weapons and new purple melee mutations, just because there's so many ranged weapons that you might be using and then you find the purple phaser and it's basically unusable. I call that a B. You average those together, find the median, run some graphs or something, pull out the TI-83 calculator. That, I think, makes it an A tier. That's actually a promotion. All right, Corrosive Cloud. Think you've only used it once? It actually got buffed. They changed it from, I think it used to be called Poison Cloud or Toxic Cloud, and they changed the name to Corrosive Cloud because now it actually applies both bleed and poison. But when we're talking, let's say you're in prison depths. You have a Lacerator who's about to start spinning. Corrosive Cloud, he'll spin through it, and then that's it. Like, maybe you can try to fight on top of the cloud, but once that monster's dead, this thing's on a 20-second cooldown. You can't use Corrosive Cloud anymore. Like, you'll only get off 5 Corrosive Clouds in the entire prison depths. That's awful. Like, why would you want to subject yourself to that? If you want a 20-second cooldown against something like prison depths, you could take Knife Dance. You could take the Death Orb. This is red-purple split. So if you're running red, you can take things like the phaser, grenades, powerful grenade. I'll even take a cluster grenade for Biomes over a corrosive. And maybe that's supposed to be the key, because there's a lot of items in the game where they're good in Biomes and then they're bad on bosses. So the idea is that, oh, it's a balanced item because you don't take it into a boss. Swift Sword is an example of that. Swift Sword we have as an S tier because of how good it is at clearing biomes. And then against bosses, it's a melee attack. Like, it's still doing actual damage. Corrosive Cloud, though, doesn't clear biomes. And then for bosses, unless you're doing custom mode 5BC speed runs, I actually don't think it's any better than any of this other stuff. All right, let's do one more because again, I have a whole crap ton, but I really want to do Telluric Shock. Only because I've gotten a decent amount of play. Yeah, Shantae in Astrolab, definitely a nasty monster. They did a good job with it though. They really did. All right, so for those who don't know, Telluric Shock, it's red-green. You can get 150 damage in 10 seconds. So you're talking survival. Survival that's like severely lacking on room clearage except for powerful grenades. This is your other option. If you never found the powerful grenade, you could go Telluric Shock instead. Telluric Shock also counts as melee damage. So you can have a Telluric Shock. If you can just pop one enemy, you'll get Berserk off. So even if you took a hit during the dive, well, after the dive, let's say you dove into bombs by mistake, then if you kill something, you will survive. You're fine. They tried to put invincibility frames on this. I haven't seen it. So I have counted multiple times where I've gotten hit during Telluric Shock. So I would say never ever attempt to like outplay something like Hand of the King with your own Telluric Shock, because chances are you're gonna take a hit. The concept of jump into a mob of enemies, activate Berserk, and then every other monster that's still alive can't really hurt you, and you can get lifesteal off Frenzy. Of course, you won't run Frenzy if you're playing Survival, but you will probably run Berserk in Survival if you're me, I guess. I know a lot of you all just do Necro, Blind Faith, Dead Inside, and call it a day. You've Telluric Shocked into the Hand of King spikes and died? Feels bad? Oh no. Yeah, so not an S. I think we can all agree, probably not an S. I'll even take a point off for Asunder's death. So Asunder, that one's for you. B tier. Now, is it better than Death Orb in Survival? I want to say yes. Only because you can do 2 Telluric Shocks by the time you can do 1 Death Orb. And I think that's a little controversial, but Death Orb also, let's say bosses. So you're fighting Timekeeper. Timekeeper, you toss out the Death Orb, try to roll through, try to like kite her into the Death Orb, or you do 2 Telluric Shocks and there's no kiting necessary. Way better as a Brutality because of melee cooldown. Again, counts as a melee mutation, a melee skill. Mutation applies to it. You down slam into enemies, knock off like 3 whole seconds. And I died from doing that myself. Nice range for close combat. Yeah, it's a gap closer too. Not as good as Phaser as a gap closer in my opinion, but I think if I had enough practice with the Telluric Shock, we could potentially make it almost as good as a Phaser. But compared to Magnetic, better. Cluster, better. Other red items, can't get into it because that's spoiler territory. Any small buff, I think, will put Telluric Shock into the A division, into the Platinum division. Until then, I think it has to stay a B. Which is super interesting because now we're getting into that saturated B market again. And look at the D tier. D tier's looking mighty lonely. Might have to put a Barnacle down there and then drop Corrupted down. How does that look? I think Corrupted has to be a C. Only because there's way too many items that don't give you the bonus application of going Super Saiyan. And then Barnacle, I think I'm really starting to dislike Barnacle. Because the affixes that it gets are like borderline unusable. It can get oil, and that's kind of cool, but the fiery shot almost, I won't say almost, it's inconsistent. That's all I'm gonna say, inconsistent. But when we have skills set up like this, it's like a nice little box. Like really cool looking, like look at that, that's beautiful. But I don't like Barnacle. Actual Barnacle hater. Crusher is a skill that's a turret, and it can kill elites. Like, it's honestly not that bad of a skill. The only thing it struggles with are a couple of bosses where it doesn't actually hit them. A lot of people don't fight those bosses anyway, so that's kind of just a Veedotme issue. And even against one of them, which is Conjunctivitis, the Crusher will hit the tentacles. So it works in half the fight and not the other half. But it's actually like really subpar. Decent. I won't say it's subpar. Can skip the whole attack and shoot with your missiles. Oh yeah, you will be either using kunai or magic missile with that. So that is definitely pretty cool. I feel like it's a little risky taking that like through the whole game, but if you can find one in the final area, like in the shop, and then just take that right into the boss, I think that's kind of cool. So it's definitely not an S. Where this thing actually works really well is killing elites. If you're playing survival, you have, honestly, in 2019, a lot of ways to just delete elites. You can either be running the heavy, you can be running giant whistle, you could have the giant killer. So I feel like or you could just have wolf traps and just kill whatever it is with the wolf trap. It's a tier list finish to see it on page. I'm working on skills right now, Perez, but if you want to see melee or ranged, you can type ! tier list and see both of them. Or you can just do ! melee or ! ranged. Shield's in there too. I always forget shield, but it is in there. So it's good against killing elites. If I would say, is it the best skill to kill elites in survival, I think giant whistle is better, and I think wolf traps are better for the like scenario where you might get a slasher and you have to like actually do some gameplay. So I think because of that, it can't be an A either. Now it's not, again, it's not a terrible item. I don't say it's so bad to be a D. I'm not quite sure if it's so bad to be a C. So in this situation, you think, okay, here's two survival weapons, Death Orb or Crusher. Which one would you rather have? I would say against elites, I would rather have Crusher. Against bosses, I would rather have Death Orb. So they're kind of synonymous with each other, and maybe the real answer is to use both. Just take both of them. But if we had to pick, we have to think, why would you take a Death Orb? Oh, actually, why would you take Crusher over Death Orb? Maybe if I was going like Concierge, Timekeeper. I feel like Timekeeper is a little tough with Death Orb, but Crusher actually stuns her a little bit, so it lets you get some additional hits off. I'm sure it's not something you can count on, but Timekeeper moves around the map a lot. So in 4BC plus, this thing is not gonna deal its maximum damage against Timekeeper. It's just not. So I think you go with Crusher in that case. But technically, if you're playing against Giant, you can go Death Orb against the Giant. You go off to the side, you can like double jump over the lava, throw the Death Orb towards his like farthest fist so it goes across the map, and it'll probably just fizzle out on the first fist. It'll probably not last that long, but that is technically a play you can make. I think we're good on Crusher. I know we talked about it for a long time. Let's move on to the stun. And I know a lot of people are using stun grenades. Stun grenades though, stun grenade I actually used to value pretty highly in the B tier. That was honestly the brutality Hunter's brutality stun grenade that gives you damage reduction. But now that brutality received like multiple buffs, they actually got rid of red on stun grenade. Now it's just green purple, which technically green needed it. Green needed that added skill, so that's actually a good thing. Purple stun grenades, I don't really care about that all that much. There are some builds, like if you're going melee, then I would probably use a stun grenade with a melee tactics setup. There's some stun grenades that do oil, I believe. So you could go like Assassin Dagger, Ice Shard, stun grenade. So if you're fighting something like Timekeeper, you can start the fight with a stun grenade, go behind her, start assassinating. When she gets unstunned, you throw the ice shard, and then hopefully, because you're running Instincto, your stun grenade will come back in like just a couple seconds. So you can try to just keep looping that until the fight's over. Obviously she'll get resistances, but because you have like so much CC in the kit, hopefully you can just melt her before you actually have like a real issue on your hands. Got foiled in Ancient Sewers, Rogue Tentacle bapped you. And it's so funny when the tentacles, they like have map wide awareness, like true sight on tentacles. They just know where you are through walls, through doors, doesn't really matter. So you'll like walk along the platform and the tentacle underneath you is just following you, waiting for you to jump down. I wanted to report that, but then I said, you know what? Let it stay. That's like super scary, and we need some fear in Dead Cells, or else we don't care about anything. So stun, definitely not an S, definitely not an A, because I'm not using it in like half the tactics items. I really want to try Assassin Dagger with the stun grenade. I don't think it's enough to like break the game. That's like a replacement. If you never saw the phaser, then yeah, you would take it with the stun instead. Or if you never saw Lacerating Aura, maybe you would go phaser, assassin dagger, and stun grenade. So this just ends up being a placeholder that you just replace it as soon as you find something else. Stun grenade super good in survival. So yeah, for those who don't know, version 1.4, which is out on all consoles now, so really you should be playing it. The stun grenade got changed from red purple to green purple. So when you're using stun grenade, that makes stuff like that makes F rank items actually viable. So broadswords you can use. You can bust out the flawless and not worry about getting hit by fast enemies. Or you can use the hemorrhage that I don't own. Hemorrhage, you honestly don't need anything. If you're super scared of heavy crossbow, you can use it with heavy crossbow. Use Hunter's Instinct and actually get cooldown reduction on your stun grenades. I don't really recommend doing that, but that's an option. You can run double boomerang with the stun grenade, Hunter's Instinct, and actually kill stuff. You can use stun grenade with the shovel if you're still afraid of like relying on Shovel's Breach. So I feel like stun grenade is actually usable on every single survival item, which makes it honestly like an A in survival, but because I'm losing like a couple points from tactics,
We're dead.
I think I want to keep it as a B, which is really in line with what we had last time. And for those who don't know, stun grenade is also cooldown, not cooldown reduction, it's damage reduction. So you can just tank, face tank everything. Not everything, you'll die. But you can face tank a couple hits.
No. Look at that damage.
Yo, new followers.
We're dead.
Catton and Hens, welcome, both of you. Glad to have you here. All right, skill. Speaking of Lacerating Aura, this thing got a buff, or yeah, it's a buff. They actually made it dual red and purple. So it's like, that's not a nerf. The only potential nerf, quote unquote nerf, is you might be playing tactics and you find a Lacerating Aura with 2 red on it. That's fine. Like, it doesn't even matter because Lacerating Aura deals dummy damage anyway. So it's like, just take the 2 red and get bonus health. So Lacerating Aura. Purple Lacerator, still the same as it's always been. Has not been nerfed at all. You can take purple lacerating in any build that you don't need maximum range, which is something like Boilingless Quiver, Marksman Bow, maybe Boomerangs, maybe the Boy. But anything, including Brutality, can take Lacerating Aura, so long as like you're actually playing close. So if you're Brutality, maybe you have like a ranged Brutality setup with like Molotovs, this thing, Infantry Bow. Maybe you're using some mid-range stuff like Valmont's Whip, Wrenching Whip. I think maybe I wouldn't take Lacerating Aura with Valmont's Whip, but even then, it's like, so there's a couple moments when I won't be critting. And then once Lacerating Aura is off cooldown, I go right back to critting. So it doesn't even matter if I'm using some red item that needs a little bit of spacing. It's perfectly... Like, I guess the only things I wouldn't take, and you can get Lacerating Aura with oil too. So even thinking about Pyro or Fire Blast or Ice Shards, you can use all of that with the Lacerating Aura so long as it applies oil. And if it doesn't apply oil, it doesn't even matter. Wow, I hate Hemorrhage. That's the meme tier. Hemorrhage confirmed as a meme. At least in this channel. So, I don't know if you all, like, disagree with having Lacerating Aura as an S. Previously, we had this thing in the B tier. Okay. So, I actually severely underrated the amount of rally you can get. This thing saves lives in tactics. You get hit by Hand the King. If you have Lacerating Aura still going, doesn't even matter. You heal it all up instantly. All you need is to have it active. If you're running tactics, I would go so far as to think about using Rally. I mean, not Rally, the real name of the mutation is Recovery. You would use Recovery with Lacerating Aura as you go into Hand the King. That way you don't have to use all your health pots just for one hit. So long as you're running Instincto with the cooldown reduction and Lacerating Aura, you can probably keep all your health through hits. Obviously, don't try to face tank, but still, you can do some real business. So Wave of Denial got nerfed. It actually had its cooldown doubled. So a Wave of Denial went from like 2.5 seconds to a 5-second cooldown. It's not survival, it's tactics only, so it's a purple item. And for those who don't know, you can get Hunter's Instinct in the purple tree. Hunter's Instinct reduces cooldown every time you kill something with Wave of Denial. So for example, you'll have two bats in the sky. You jump in front of them, pop wave, your cooldown is basically like negated. That thing just never goes on cooldown if you're running Hunter's Instinct. Obviously against bosses, yeah, it doesn't actually get spammed. But when fighting bosses with this thing, that's not really your main source of damage anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Maybe it applies oil, maybe it applies poison. That's all whatever. It's really just biome clears. And previously we had this in the S division. The only time I feel like I don't like the only time I don't like Wave Denial is when I don't have Hunter's Instinct. Maybe that's because I get like a cursed version. So say cursed Brutality Wave of Denial. Yeah, I don't have Hunter's Instinct, but I'm probably still gonna take it. Just because it's a Wave of Denial. It kills stuff without even needing cooldown reduction. It just kills stuff. Wave of Denial, you all can probably just agree. S tier. Maybe it's an A, specifically because of not using Hunter's Instinct. I feel like Hunter's Instinct is mandatory if you're running Wave, unless you're using a cursed version in another color. Then that means your Wave is just there for like the convenience factor. It's just a good item. But I typically get Hunter's Instinct every single time I have it. Except I guess with the new melee setup. But I'm on the fence about how good this is in the melee setup. I'm not even gonna really like talk about this item too much. We sell this thing. I know a lot of people are using Wings of the Crow, maybe in the higher divisions, but definitely in the lower divisions, it's still relatively good. But Wings of the Crow desperately needs fixes. I would say some fixes would probably take it out of F and maybe put it in the C tier. Still not good enough to be a B, in my opinion. For this thing to get out of F, it would A, not actually reduce your altitude. So for those who don't know, you activate the wing and you actually float downward until you hit a certain like level. That they need to get rid of. It needs to actually just stay a continuous height or even gain altitude. So number 2, you should be able to gain altitude by like spamming jump or something. Why that's not a thing, I'm not too sure. I would only imagine that they didn't want people to like jump over Concierge and then be able to kill Concierge, but you're not gonna kill it with Wings of the Crow anyway, so why does it matter? Just let me float to the top of the map if I want to, because it's not doing anything else regardless. If this thing let me float to the top of the map, I'll make it a D, just because that's funny. And Wings of the Crow, as soon as you hit circle, it's canceled. And I think that's fair, like that's the balance, is you can't do anything in the sky or else you lose it. But it's useless to me. And again, if you're a Wing Zero fan, I'm more of an Epion guy. But if you like the Wing Zero, that's okay too. I like Hiroyui. Perfectly good anime character, but I was always on the Peacecraft side of the family, if you know what I mean. Shout out to anyone who knows that reference. So Wings of the Crow does not electrocute in water. You can actually get hit by Concierge because you actually lose altitude. Concierge can punch you out of the wing. Elites, you think, okay, that's all fine. I'm just using this thing for elites, no big deal. Elites, the crystal can shoot you out of the sky. That's the turret that the elite spawns over its head. That hits you. You can have elites with the aura. If the elite activates this aura, aura hits you. You might have an elite that does the spinning laser. If that laser comes to you, you're toast. So multiple reasons to not use Wing of the Crow. And it's on a 20-second cooldown. Again, maybe you can draw Exodia where you're using like Corrosive Cloud plus this plus like a Molotov, and you have a Wing Zero that actually does bonus damage to every single dot. Then okay, maybe you're doing like a Lacerating Aura's worth of damage every 20 seconds instead of just using Lacerating Aura with like free gear. And it was an F back in the day, it's still an F. It can rot as far as I care. I just wanted to say, if they want it to be fixed, Motion Twin, you know where I'm at, you know where I live. Hopefully you don't, because that sounds a little sketchy. If you need me to fix this item, just put me on a plane and send me to France. Maybe I'll do some work while I'm there. Maybe. It's a big maybe. All right, moving on. Back up to the let's knock out some grenades and then we'll save the last one. Root, just like Stun Grenade, got buffed. It got taken out of red, and you're probably not using red roots anyway. You're just like walking through enemies and just destroying them if you're playing Brutality. If you're playing Brutality, I don't think you're using root grenades. If you're playing Tactics, you might use the root grenade because of filler, I guess. I feel like at some point you would ditch the root grenade and go with something else. If you're playing Survival though, because the item got changed from red purple to green purple, you're possibly using root grenade. Maybe it's still a placeholder, repeater crossbow, but I would probably want to use, actually, what's the root duration? That's a good question. Monsters are rooted for 3 seconds, or monsters are rooted, well, stunned, I'm sorry. or monsters are stunned for 2.5, plus you're playing on 4BC plus, and you get the stun grenade that stuns for an additional duration. Yeah, so all in all, it's probably about 5 seconds. I actually didn't know it was a longer cooldown, so that's kind of interesting. The difference is root grenade does damage, stun grenade gives you damage reduction. So maybe there's some reasoning, like player preference, I would say, on which one you would take if you wanted to go tactics and you wanted something like repeater crossbow. If you were running survival, I honestly feel like stun grenade is better in the survival tree, just because being able to face tank and also that 5-second stun compared to just the 3-second root. The damage per second, 30 damage for 3 seconds, 90. So that's 90 damage in 16 seconds compared to, well, survival, I guess. There's nothing else that does that. Worms. I feel like worms could out damage root grenade in like 3 seconds. Repeater doesn't crit on stun, only root? Really? That's very interesting. We have root grenade in the C tier right now. I would guess you would take root grenade maybe if you never saw the wolf trap. So if I'm running assault crossbow and we see a wolf trap, I'm ditching root grenade for that instantly. It is an S tier item, so maybe that's a little unfair, just to say that. But if I'm playing assault crossbow, I don't think I would stack both of these together. If I'm using the root grenade, would I possibly replace that with a turret? I don't know. I think that automatically makes it a C. Like, it's good enough to get me by, but it's only good because I never saw the wolf trap. I think that's where I really want to go with this. And wolf trap can do damage too. So I feel like wolf trap is a better root grenade, except root grenade hits like in an AoE, so root can also kill bats. But a poisoning wolf trap can kill bats too. So again, that's an S rank item, so I can't keep comparing it to the root, but it's like I want to ditch root as fast as possible. That's the goal. I hit grenades by mistake in the shop. I meant to hit traps. That's what root grenade is to me. Super controversial, yeah. Had to do it. We can't, and I like the shape too. Look at the box. 61 Nutcracker, root grenade, wolf trap, and stun grenade with cudgel. That's like overkill though. Like actual overkill. Like where's the damage at? Unless that wolf trap and that Nutcracker are like insane, I just don't know where the damage comes from. I'd rather replace the root grenade, keep the wolf trap, and run like a giant whistle to at least deal 15%. But again, that's why I love doing the tier list, because you all make it very fun, very competitive. All right, let's move on. Again, you can keep asking your questions in the chat. I will answer them as we go, but we definitely have to get through all of these tonight. Kagebushi no Jutsu. This is the Shadow Clone Jutsu, aka Explosive Decoy. It actually got a buff in 2 ways. One, the monsters don't chase you while you're invisible anymore. So that was a big problem back in 4BC, back in version like 1.3 and lower, where if you go invisible, if you aggro anything beforehand, the monsters will actually chase you no matter what. So they fixed that where the monsters do lose aggro. They go after the decoy instead. And then the other buff they did was just a raw numbers buff. They just increased the damage. So now a single explosive decoy does 110 among... it doesn't actually say how many bombs it is. That's kind of lame. But it does like multiple bombs. And chances are all of them hit. You might have, say there's 5 bombs. Chances are a good 3 of them are gonna hit the enemy. Believe it or not, some people do value the explosive decoy very, very highly. And that's because they can one-shot elites with it. Now you can't find an explosive decoy that automatically one-shots elites. That just, sometimes it doesn't happen, but it can. So it can get into like giant whistle territory, but not enough to take it every single time. And I wouldn't compete with any of these guys with the explosive decoy. Now, would I replace this with any of these? Oops. Any of these items? Remember, this is purple only. So I would say I would probably replace it unless I had like an absolutely disgusting decoy. It's a really good grenade with the benefits of deployable traps. And it does poisoning. I've had the oil one too. The oil one can actually be pretty decent. So then the question becomes, do you take explosive decoy over stuff in the sea tree? So that means basically Crusher, root grenade. I would take it over root grenade, to be honest. I would probably take it over ice grenade. I would probably not take it over Crusher. Depends on what like my goal is. My only issue with the explosive decoy is that the cooldown is the full 20 seconds. So it's a long time for bosses. Like against the Timekeeper, and most bosses like ignore the decoy anyway. So all you're doing is fighting on top of the decoy, praying that it does damage. If the monster doesn't pop it instantly, then you did nothing in 20 seconds except maybe applied poison, and that's probably bad. Against the giant, because of the spread, you'll have bombs fall into the lava, or you might have like the bombs split between the 2 fists, and that's like not terrible, but you could have done more damage off honestly anything. Even Barnacle, you could have done more damage. So what explosive decoy does is it just gives you ways to clear biomes that you didn't necessarily have. Once you get something like the quick bow, again, S rank item, you don't really have to worry about that anymore. But in the early levels, Promenade, Ossuary, all of that stuff, it does kill things. It really does. And previously we had this as a C tier. So I actually don't mind doing that. Again, I think if you haven't tried explosive decoy, you really should. We just replace it once we get strong enough. It's not like cluster grenade where I'm just like, I'm praying to replace it. This thing is like, I'm gonna use it until I finally have all the pieces of the puzzle together. And then I'm probably not using this anymore. Yeah, the invisibility it's a good item, it really is. I definitely would like you all to use it if you have not. Owl though, Owl's so good we actually have 2 of them on the tier list. Look at that. And you can't have the owl without her brother either. So you had to have both of them up here. Imagine having a tier list that only had 1 owl. That's like the real feels bad. Yeah, multiple invisibility when you have the mutation. That actually sounds like fun. So if you fail to assassinate a target, you can just activate your shadow clone. and then go back into invisibility. All right, so owls. Owls, as everyone in chat knows, we had as an S tier. We always joked like, oh, owls, maybe that's like the owl tier. Maybe it's in a tier, a league all of its own. Challenger level owls in Dead Cells. And like, it's good. It really is. Should it be in its own tier? So the example we're gonna use is the heavy crossbow, the shotgun. That was a little controversial to have that as a triple S rank. And to have that as a triple S means there's possibly a chance this can be a triple S. One owl for S, one owl for mean. I don't want to have, well, yet. We'll know because we're not done with the tier list. I don't really want to have an owl tier. Screw everything else. We're going giant with this lacerating aura or this owl. Whatever else I had in the garbage can. None of them can hit the eye, and it hits both eyes and the hands. Yeah, I don't know if that's a tough one. I don't really know if I want the turret to hit the eyeball. I like that the turrets are going for the hands. That's my biggest like thing for the giant, is that ambient damage. I want to focus on the giant's eyeball. Like owls, for example. I don't really want the owls to attack the eyeball. I want to attack the eyeball. Their job is the trash mob. They take care of the trash. I take care of the boss. Don't tell the owls I said that though, because I'll definitely die next time I have owls. But I prefer having the turrets whittle down the hand health while I also attack the eyeball. So owl, you honestly can't go wrong with owl. So now that we're on version 1.4, this is a little heads up for everyone. If you're playing melee tactics and you're running invisibility, that's the only time owl is potentially a problem, because the owl will actually break your invisibility as soon as it shoots something. So you imagine you're in Clock Tower, you're rolling around, you hit a little homie, get your invisibility. If that thing shoots a cannibal, you're no longer invisible, and that cannibal is going after you. So I would say that is the only scenario where the owl is not viable. Any other situation, it actually works. Predator doesn't work with a predator animal. And yeah, if you think about it, the owl is probably the main character and you're just like the sidekick when you're using the owl. So let me be invisible because the owl's doing all the work anyway. But then like you can run into some scenarios where like you're somehow perma invisible using phaser. Like phaser, teleport, owl, pop it, you go invisible. No melee attack required. So I think that's fairly balanced. Why do I never talk about Timekeeper? The hashtag not always giant? Because I hate Timekeeper. Giant Whistle. Giant Whistle got a buff for like the official release of 1.4, where the Giant Whistle actually can break the damage cap. So for those who don't know, the most damage you can do in the game is straight 9s. It's apparently not display error. I thought it was just like we couldn't possibly show more numbers than straight 9s. But I think now that the devs confirmed that Giant Whistle is the only thing that breaks the damage cap, then that means straight 9s is the damage cap. So Giant Whistle itself still only does 15% against a boss's health. But 15% is like still kind of okay. Not the best in the world. But if you can imagine, like you're basically saying that bosses only have 85% max health. If you have this thing's on a 24-second cooldown, So let's say the boss takes you like 1 minute to kill. That means the boss only has 70% of its max health. I think that's actually like kind of okay. Assuming you can deal 15% somehow. That's still like not easy. So it's not an S because even in survival, I'm gonna take like a wolf trap over a giant whistle. But how is this thing not an A? You can always get 2 whistles. So for those who haven't seen it, anything over 20 survival and you can easily one-shot any elite, this thing kills elites. So when you're playing survival, the things that will get you killed are curses and bad luck. Bad luck being something like slasher with rotating laser, I guess, and maybe you don't have a good shield yet because you got super unlucky. Either way, you can just like giant whistle it, probably kill it. If it doesn't kill it, maybe you need a poison. Apply the poison, kills it. Aesthetically S tier, otherwise probably A. Vatriano saying it's an A. You assume that you're not bad and you won't just straight die. Big same, Titan. Big same. So the only issue with Giant Whistle is that you can't like get free biome clears, but you're using survival anyway. So you're running necromancy, you're running dead inside, you're running possibly extendo heal to get rid of your malaise. So really you don't need to kill monsters. Monsters aren't the problem. It's elites and bosses when you're playing survival. And even on some bosses, when you're rocking like the giant killer, the GK, maybe you don't feel like playing double powerful grenades. Maybe you go 1 powerful grenade, 1 whistle. And that might be a thing. I don't know, because I don't use powerful grenades. This is an A because I watched other people use it. You hate the grenade, it just kills mobs and doesn't deal damage. That's a good way to put it. I just don't like, again, I measured it as an A because I watched other people use it. And the way they play the game with powerful grenade is like completely different than how I play the game. So when you're playing that style, powerful grenade is definitely an A tier. And by style, I mean, let's say for example, you have an elite gangplank. That's the pirate that's in Stilt Village. He's chasing you down because you're so, you just don't have the build to kill that. But you have 2 powerful grenades. So regardless of what your build is, that thing's gonna die eventually. Like, just keep running around, forcing it to teleport, it's gonna die. It might take you the full, is it 26 seconds? Yeah, it might take you 26 seconds to kill it, but it'll probably die in 4 grenades. So that's why this thing's an A tier, because it's like just a generic like get off my screen button. Giant Whistle does that too, but I like Giant Whistle, so that's why we're keeping it as an A. Next grenade, Oil Grenade. So oil, we previously had as a C tier, C for situational. Oil gets bonus effects from ice shards, any fire source, pyro, and fire blast. So if you think about why would oil's grenade be in the C tier, that's because like almost as like simple as it gets, you want other stuff to make it work. Still C tier, really good, or it doesn't add much depending on your other gear. Yeah, so what we're trying to think of, Grunson, is the concept of Hokuto's bow. So Hokuto's bow doesn't do anything on its own, and then when you have your gear, does the Hokuto actually like destroy the game? So it can't be because it has to basically be better than anything else you could have used. So for example, is oil grenade plus ice shards that much better than ice shards plus anything else I could have possibly used? I want to say yes, only because oil grenade deals damage, but there's not a lot of builds that you can actually get the full use. It's like another investment. So Hokuto's bow, there's like multiple items that you can actually get live as soon as you get the Hokuto. You can use Hayabusa gauntlets, you can use boomerangs, you can use a couple two-hand weapons like the Flawless. Maybe you do it with the Alchemic Carbine. So you can go with like melee setups, you can go with range setups. Oil grenade is basically just range setups. Even if you're going oil sword, if you're thinking like, okay, I'm gonna do something really cool, straight up BP oil just everywhere, throw the oil grenade, have the oil sword, ignite it somehow, and then everywhere is oiled up. You already have an oil sword, so it's like no real need to actually have the oil grenade, in my opinion. Only use it if you have something with fire. A B if you take that, maybe. Dimitito saying it's situational. Hokuto with any dots giga busted. I can definitely see that. That's why, so Hokuto was listed as a B, I believe. Gotta check that. Is it range? Yeah. So Hokuto was listed as an A, actually. I don't think oil is good enough to be an A. And I want to say it's not quite that great to be a B. Only if I'm using like double ice shards. If I'm running Fire Blast or Pyro, it's also really good, but remember, Fire Blast and Pyro, well, Pyro is purple only, so that means you're assuming this is cursed, which means it has to be a C because it's only good in Pyro if you're cursed. If you mean Fire Blast I have as like a D rank. Oh no, I just clicked out. Oh, I clicked out. Wow. Hang on. I think we can get it back. No. Okay. Nice, we're chilling. It works pretty well. It does work. It does work. It does its job. The question is, it's a tier list. So like, when do I get rid of it is the question. And I get rid of it if I'm brutality when I take anything else up here, except maybe this guy. A matter of fact, I would actually prefer oil grenade over infantry in like most scenarios. Unless this is the poisoning one, then I'm taking the poisoning one. So when you fix this, that spread oil, that oil grenade is just redundant. So if you're running purple, then you have more options to get oil. If you're running red and you're doing, yeah, Fire Blast is down here in the D rank. So I actually don't value Fire Blast at all. Even with the oil grenade, it probably brings it up to a C. Even still, if I'm playing a red build, I would want to get rid of this Fire Blast. I would take, honestly, like the double ice shards. Torch can work. Torch is nice with the oil grenade. I think I would rather have a flame turret in that case. Now, you can say that the oil grenade's nice because the flame turret is only on one piece of the map. If you throw oil grenade, it puts oil everywhere. So you can jump up, hit monsters, but I feel like the fire, the torch itself is good enough to kill a lot of monsters. doesn't really need the oil extra damage. The only thing the oil does is ignite the whole map. And yeah, that can be okay. Hopefully you didn't aggro something nasty. You just hate oil plus fire because it drops the FPS. Oh, that is... Yo, that's enough to make it a D. If I was on Windows 95, I would definitely drop it down to a D. I'm right there with you, wifey. All right, let's keep it going. But yeah, keep the discussion rolling, everybody. I am perfectly willing to keep talking it out. Oh, I skipped Lightspeed. I didn't mean to skip Lightspeed. Oops. So Lightspeed, aka Shadow the Hedgehog if you're going Brutality, aka Blaze the Cat if you're playing Tactics. When you first get this item, Lightspeed, and in the lower divisions, this thing's nuts. You put Hunter's Instinct on if you're going purple, you're killing like everything that you slide through. If you're playing Brutality, maybe you're using Killer Instinct, and then trying to get off as many of these as you can just to get to the next monster to punch it. All Nade does the same damage, but also boosts fire damage to make your fire fixes work. Yeah, it does. Not gonna lie. I would just replace it if I'm running red. I don't think I would keep Oil Grenade for very long. And it's C for situational. That doesn't mean that it's like never the right choice. It's just that there's a couple items I would take unless I drew all the Exodia pieces in my hand at once. Then yeah, we will like that's a legendary Oil Grenade, for example, that deals 15% bonus damage. That's legit. If Lightspeed was a melee skill, like Phaser or Telluric Shock, I think it could be an S, like 100%. But because it's a range skill, only gets the cooldown reduced. And again, the cooldown isn't terrible. 7-second cooldown is actually very attractive. But I don't think you're running... Well, we've never actually tried a Brutality build with Hunter's Instinct with Lightspeed. I think conceptually it's pretty viable. But I don't think it's as good as Phaser. And that's 5BC. So 5BC, we have some monsters that this thing won't one-shot. Phaser, Slashers, Lacerating Aura guy, that's the Lacerator. Hammers, it should one-shot Failed Experiment unless you're really unlucky. And it might not one-shot a Cannibal either. Every other monster in 5BC, it will probably one-shot. Lightspeed leaves you vulnerable, Phaser does not. Yeah, I definitely value Phaser over Lightspeed. I haven't found the nuts build that actually makes Phaser like that good, but I think it's out there still. I think it's out there, I wanna believe. So I'm willing to actually make Lightspeed a B. And again, that's Brutality Lightspeed I'm saying is better than Corrupted Power, better than Cluster Grenade, better than Magnetic Grenade, I guess. Tactics Lightspeed, I say it's better than Corrupted Power. It's okay. I just worry about playing Tactics with this Lightspeed. Like, it's just so dangerous compared to Phaser. It's a BBO better than oil. For those who don't know, Lightspeed can actually apply oil. We actually had a build using ice shards where you Lightspeed through, apply oil, turn around, throw the ice shards. If they don't die, then you try to run for the next monsters. Lightspeed back through all of them, apply more oil, and then you throw more. So you can actually get oil on Lightspeed, and it's kind of decent. I won't say it's game breaking, but it's decent. And that's a longer, well, not longer duration, but 7 seconds compared to the oil grenades 10 seconds. So in like 3 light speeds, you can get off an extra one over oil or something like that. I don't know. Either way, oh, you're talking Timekeeper? I have, yeah, so that does make a couple different things that you can do versus Timekeeper with Wave of Denial. That's actually pretty cool. Thank you for that, Shaq. I didn't know that. Hey, how you doing, Speedy? Curse Sword is meme tier? Done. Boom. There you go, Silly. And how you doing today, Silly, as well? Can we get some V-Dot highs in the chat, everybody who has it? If you don't, you can do exclamation point high. Big highs to everyone tuning in for the tier list today. This is the last day of the skill tier list. Oh, Tonic. Oh my god. Look at chat. I'm telling you, you can ask chat anything and they can figure it out. Tonic. I'm just gonna put it as an F right now so we can compare the two of these. So for those who use this just to heal and then you get rid of it, that makes it still an F. But you can actually take Tonic into bosses and actually do stuff with it. Remember, shout out to the old build, like way back in the day. And there's a couple different ways. Number one is pairing it with emergency triage and a lot of health pots. For those who don't know, every time you drink and this thing goes to 0, if you use a health pot, you actually get a refill. So it doesn't only work once, it actually works every time you drink. And I hate the fact that this thing actually blocks the boomerangs. Okay, so we just activated the Tonic. What Tonic does, it gives you 3 seconds of invulnerability. So when you're using something like boomerangs, you just throw out the boomerangs and you stand there and just let Hand of the King do whatever he wants. Doesn't even matter.
Oh, snap.
Now again, this is just because boomerangs were busted. Like, you won't be able to do that in 1.4 unless you draw Exodia again.
Dude, that's so legit. Holy crap.
Now, for those who didn't see, I actually instantly drank a health pot so that I actually get my Tonic back. So I'm gonna actually use the Tonic again. I'm only gonna DPS this thing while my Tonics are active.
That Tonic was lit.
Now you can say like, oh V, but you don't want to spam like your potions. Like on Concierge, you don't want to do that on Concierge, and obviously you don't. This is something that you would do for just like the final boss. So it's a very good final boss killing item.
Dude, let him.
But that's like freewins.com. You can do that on final bosses. I don't think it's an F, only because of that case. Now, is it a D or a C? I would say you can't really make it a C because that's not like situational. That's like you have all your health pots and you have like super damage where you can just stand there. Useful on its own and a plus on bosses. Yeah, so if you're looking at the stuff up here where we actually we kind of stopped doing this, but I like to have it on the screen just to give some talking points. But you can actually use this on like elites, for example, but then I would rather just pop it with the giant whistle. You can take this into Concierge, maybe you'll dodge an aura phase. That's not half bad either. But all I ever really do this with is the boss and then spamming it on the final boss Tonic is an S, being on 5BC and about to use a health pot, and you find that Tonic. Sure. Like, you all want it as a C, I'll make it a C. That one's for you, chat. Why is Magnetic a D? It makes hammers so easy. So that's one monster out of a lot, Speedy. And if you're going Brutality, I don't think Brutality has any issues with hammers at all. So really it's just Tactics that I think has an issue with hammers, where you might be something like Marksman Bow, or even in some cases Lightning Bolt. That could be an issue. I'm missing the light grenade. Absolutely right. Let's get into the Wormettes though. Feel like the community has it a bit overrated. I gotta show more games of it. Like, once I have the YouTuber that actually has magnetic grenade in it, then yeah, we can consider it like better. So everybody, Wormettes, get your Wormette fan art, your Wormette Daki whatever it is. Get them out, because this is like the item. I am starting to really like swarm grenades. Not to say that they like destroy elites. Not to say that it like clears biomes. So it's not an S. I'll go ahead and say that. It's probably not an A either. But it's actually good. I've actually killed bosses because Swarm did so much damage. Biters that apply poison, just biting your Achilles tendon, getting that like the Komodo dragon toxic saliva into their bloodstream. I know that's a little graphic, I'm sorry chat, but that's what's happening when Wormettes are actually biting these monsters. And I feel like it's actually kind of decent. Spam it too much and the monsters worms start despawning. So I actually R30 Hedron. I was playing Hayabusa Gauntlets, I believe. Or maybe it was Twin Dagger. I think it was Twin Dagger. I put that with the Swarm Grenade, both on square button, and it actually slowed down the combo of the Twin Dagger. Transition. All right, so here we got stream within a stream. Oops. There we go. And right now, so this is, again, this is exclusive footage. This actually isn't gonna premiere for another hour and 30 minutes. So anyone in chat right now, don't record this with your cell phone or anything. That is against the DMCA. You will get fined 10,000 V-Bucks if you record this footage. So of course, like, yeah, Hannah King, he does kill worms. It feels bad. But the concept is that when you're playing a build like this, you're throwing worms down, and then you're doing like hard blocks and stuff like that. The worms are always dealing damage while you're dodging and stuff like that. Again, if I was better at the game and able to parry and stuff like that, and actually use the swarm grenade. Look at this thing not being used right now. Imagine if I actually hit R2 multiple times. But you can kind of see, like, you can barely see the poison stacks. Every single one of those poison stacks, all those 160s, all of those are bites. And then they actually bite it himself. So it does damage, and it actually stacks up. I'm not gonna show the final boss because I know we have some people who might not want to see it quite like that, but it's definitely like super viable. I honestly feel like it's actually a B. So let's talk about red swarm grenades. I would honestly take red swarm over corrupted power, over possibly oil grenade. And there are worms that apply oil, so that is a thing. Gonna go, all right, Ender, you're pretty much seeing the locked in tier list. I don't think anything's gonna drop down into a D, and I don't think anything's gonna drop down to an F. Like, part of me wants to bring this down into the D tier, but I want to see a game that has ice grenades on bosses. I always ditch my ice grenade before I get to the boss. Of course, Wolf Trap is better in that situation, but I would actually like to give that a try. So yeah, please, if you're out there, if you don't have the Wormettes unlocked, please do. They're good. Signed, sealed, and approved by Veedotme. If your worms aren't actually doing anything, then it might be your fault. I'm just gonna... Owl. Think about the owl. How many times have we done stuff despite what the owl is like trying to get us to do? Remember, yesterday I died from curses. Double owl, I jumped into like 50 enemies and died. Why am I not letting the owls do their job? That's my fault. So, Swarm, the Wormettes, if you let the Wormettes do their job, it's actually a good item. Worms are the picture perfect situational item. They can be, Kirby. They can be. I gotta vouch for my my sisters. So, let's talk about survival. Survival Wormettes. So basically, you're comparing Death Orb to the Wormette, and the question is, does the Death Orb do more damage than Wormettes? A, Death Orb can miss. So you're talking Timekeeper, running all over the map. If you aren't very good at using that Death Orb and actually kiting her into it, you're gonna do half the damage that the Death Orb is supposed to do with a 20-second cooldown, compared to worms that you can just spam and they will always deal damage as long as you're actually pressing the button. If you're not pressing the button, then yes, you're not gonna have the damage. Now, that's not to say that this deals Death Orb worth of damage, but somehow if worms don't do damage, it's my fault? Exactly. Just like the owl. So there's people who will say owls can't be S because if you get hit, the owl disappears. So why is owl an S? And the answer is, you have to let the owl do its job. If you took a hit, that's because you were trying to do something else and not let the owl do its job. So for example, we've had hits by the giant before, where I was like, okay, the owl is on cooldown or something. Maybe I had poor positioning and it wasn't actually hitting the other fist. I went in, I tried to do some melee or something, I got hit, and now the owl's gone. That's my fault. That's not the owl's fault. The owl's still an S. It's my fault for taking that hit. So in the worm's defense, against like Hand of the King, like you all saw, I didn't use that Wormette grenade for a good like 6 seconds. And then for Brutality, I feel like it's honestly probably about as useful as Infantry grenade in Brutality. I'm actually starting to like Brutality less and less. Not Brutality, I'm sorry, Infantry grenade less and less because it just is so generic, except the poisoning one. The poisoning one is actually really good. But this one, I almost just fun factor wise, I want to get something else that's just more fun. And that's why I'm kind of valuing them sort of equally. If we had like middle tiers, then we would say something like Infantry grenade might be like a higher B and worms might be a lower B. But even then, like, I don't know. Remember the light? Sure. I got you, Nature Yano. Boom. Right there. I like it though. There's the only thing I'm remotely questioning right now is Ice being in the C tier. And oil being in the C tier. I kind of want to like go down and up, but again, I don't want B being that saturated. We need stuff to go down. And then I'm putting a lot of faith in Cleaver. That's the other thing that's a little like weird. But thinking concepts, I want this thing to actually work. And maybe on the next tier list, remember we did this one back in May. So maybe in like a couple months when version 1.5 comes out, we do another tier list. Maybe this is all changed. Maybe this owl is all the way down in the F. Rip owl. They put ammo on the owl. I'm never using owls again. Don't disrespect the owls like that, Motion Twin, please. All right, let's save it. Saving. Once again, thank you everyone in chat for helping out with this. I love doing these tier lists because of the fact that we can all contribute. I would say I probably wouldn't do this by myself.